Improving my mental health meant making changes in my behaviors, making changes in the actions I was doing. I could watch and read as much content as I wanted, but it was only when I started making intentional changes that I started seeing improvements. And changing my actions also meant changing the actions I was doing up in my head, because I was time traveling a lot in my head, trying to go back to the past, trying to plan for the future, or trying to go through certain scenarios in the future. And aside from obvious compulsions I was doing, I was just spending a lot of time in my head in general. It often felt safer than just being in the world. But when my mental health started getting really poor, nothing really felt safe or comfortable anymore. So even that comfort zone in my head, so to speak, was not comfortable at all anymore. Two practices that have helped me make changes with what I was doing inside of my head are meditation and doing one thing at a time. When I tell people I meditate, I usually get a similar reaction. It's something along the lines of, oh, I tried meditation, but it just didn't work for me, or I just couldn't do it. And that usually tells me that the person is approaching meditation with maybe not a very useful goal. Often people try and use meditation to feel calm. They feel stressed from doing a bunch of compulsions, and then they try and use meditation to calm down. And when that doesn't work, they stop meditating. So don't make the goal of your meditation to feel more calm. It can actually be an opportunity to have any feeling and allow any feeling without judgment. I like to view it just as me spending some time trying to do nothing. Doing nothing is a skill I want to get better at, so I practice it. I don't have to try and get anything out of it. It's just something I do. Now, at first, we'll be terrible at doing nothing because we haven't practiced it in a while, and that's totally fine. I've been meditating for a bit now, and I wouldn't say I'm that good at doing nothing. Sometimes I have decent sessions, sometimes I don't, but I'm not attached to any certain outcome. And that really helps me stay consistent with it because it's not frustrating. I just practice. And the practice of meditation also sometimes gives me some info on what I've been doing throughout the day and how I've been behaving. Because when it's especially hard to meditate, that usually tells me that I've been doing a bunch of stuff in my head during that day, or I've been multitasking a lot, or rushing things, or jumping from one thing to the other. And it's no wonder that when I want to sit down or lie down to meditate, that the brain wants to keep that practice going. It doesn't just want to stop and do nothing. And that info is useful for the second practice, and that is doing one thing at a time. It was no wonder I was very bad at doing nothing, because I was always doing stuff, and I was usually doing multiple things at a time. I was up in my head throughout most of the day, or I was consuming a lot of content. I was basically always distracting myself from reality. So it was pretty logical that I had a hard time just being. When I would sit down to eat food, I would watch a YouTube video, I would listen to stuff when I was cleaning. When I was waiting for an appointment, I would check my phone. I was basically teaching my brain that we always needed to fill up the space. So when I stopped doing it myself, the brain would do it for me, throwing up a bunch of thoughts and feelings. Many people have experienced racing thoughts at night, and it might prevent them from falling asleep, and they try to fix it by looking at that specific moment. Okay, what can I do when I'm laying in bed? And that can be useful, but it can also be useful to look at what you've been doing throughout the day and what you've been teaching the brain throughout the day. Because if we're constantly running around up inside our heads or in real life throughout the day, then it's no wonder that the brain doesn't just want to stop at night. So practicing doing one thing at a time was and is very useful to me. And it's not about doing anything special. It's a very simple practice. We're just doing the thing we're doing. It's mostly about dropping all the extra stuff we would do at the same time, planning stuff inside of our heads, consuming content, stuff like that. And this practice can also be about befriending feelings of boredom. And actually, boredom is already quite a negative judgment. We can also call it just being, and it's quite useful to practice just being. And this practice is definitely still a work in progress for me because it's so easy to distract ourselves. But when I take this practice seriously, I notice that it's a little easier for me to disengage from compulsions and to just live my life.